Hey, what's up, family? Ramone, Preston here. Listen, I want to take a few moments to share with you a little information with regard to this holding company concept. I get a lot of questions on a regular basis, not just about what a holding company is, but how do you actually structure a holding company if you're structuring a company for the first time, and or if you already have an existing company and you're trying to figure out how to restructure it into a holding company. So let me begin by saying, first and foremost, a holding company, you heard it from me, all right? A holding company is not a legal entity, all right? A holding company is not a legal entity. Make sure that you understand what I'm saying very clearly. A holding company is not a legal entity. Now, when I say a legal entity, I'm talking about a S corporation, a C corporation, a LLC, a partnership, any type of legal corporation that you're able to go to the Secretary of State and file as a legal entity. That's not necessarily a holding company. Although many states, particularly like the state we're in, the state of Georgia, they have certain categories or codes that you can specify the industry that your legal entity is in. So for example, I can go to the Georgia Secretary of State and I can go through the filing process to file my legal entity, whether it's an S Corp, a C Corp, or an LLC, or a partnership, whatever the legal entity is. And they give me an option, at least in my state's Secretary of State business filing portal, they give me an option to choose what type of legal entity it's going to be. So if it's going to be an LLC or S Corp or C Corp, I'm going to specify that. Then there are certain categories or codes that I'm able to specifically identify my LLC, my S Corp, my C Corp by. Now in our state, we actually have a category, or more appropriately speaking, we have a code that is highlighting or specifying that this LLC, this S Corp, this C Corp, this legal entity is in fact designated for the purpose of the offices of a holding company. Now, some states don't have that. I've looked at a lot of Secretary of State business filing portals, and I really didn't see that in some. Perhaps there are those that do have it. If you're familiar with what I'm talking about and you know your state actually has it, please drop a comment below the video so that we can know what state you representing that has that specific category or code. But back to my conversation. Once you specify what category or code it is, then it doesn't make that LLC or that S Corp or C Corp a holding company just because you're specifying that this is the type of business that you're doing or this is the operating purpose of that business. It just means that the category or coding of that portal or of that business system is going to be specified or identified as a LLC or S Corp or C Corp or a partnership or a legal entity that's operating for the sole purpose. It's similar to if you filed at the Secretary of State's business portal for a legal entity, and let's say you started a LLC, but your LLC is for selling apparel or for agriculture or for a club or for some type of real estate. You can categorize or specify that legal entity in that specific area. So that's the difference between you having a holding company and you having an LLC, a S Corp, or a C Corp. Now, the second part of this question / discussion that I want to bring clarity on is that once you file your legal entity, and if you specify or not that it is for the purpose and operating as a holding company, the holding company is a concept from the beginning anyway. So even if you go and specify it because the Secretary of State gives you an opportunity to, it doesn't mean your business is going to operate as a holding company. I know a whole lot of people who have paid CPAs or attorneys or firms or certain companies to file their LLCs or to file their C Corps and S Corps, and they have categorized and coded and specified their companies to be holding companies, and they're still not operating as a holding company. You know why? Because it's not just a section or a segment or category or code on your Secretary of State filing system or in that portal. It's actually a concept. So when you think about a holding company, number one, it's not a legal entity, even though you can code it or categorize it in some states where you file for your legal entity. Number two, once you do file your legal entity, whether you specify it as a holding company or for the purpose of a holding company or not, you still have to learn the concept, because a concept is something that you're not going to just know and have because you own a legal entity. Think about it. You might be watching this video. You may have owned a business before. You might own a business right now, or you might be anticipating to own a business, and you at least have enough knowledge to know that the business you own or the business you want to own needs to be a holding company. In other words, you have come to the know or to the knowledge that your business, whether you currently own one or want to own one, it needs to have a concept centered around this idea of a holding company. And the way you do that is by educating yourself. This is one of the reasons why we are teaching and training the people that we are on our university platform through our blueprint programs. As a matter of fact, we have hundreds of courses that we teach in our blueprint programs. They are specifically designed to teach you and to train you on all things concerning financial literacy, concerning entrepreneurship, business ownership, ministry leadership, if you're in ministry, and investments in wealth building. But more specifically, we have an entrepreneur's guide to business program built into our blueprints. And in this program, we have an entire segment teaching you step by step, not just what a holding company is, because you know what that is now, how a holding company works, but we also walk you through with video tutorials on how to file it if you're a DIYer, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, or if you outsource the filing to someone else or to another company. At least you need to know how it is, so that when you do file your legal entity, whether you categorize it or not as a holding company, now you understand the concept, because how you operate that LLC is going to have a lot to do with what you know about a holding company. How you operate that S Corp, that C Corp, that partnership is going to have a lot to do with how you operate that corporation. And that's going to be based on your knowledge. So in order to understand thoroughly all the ins and outs of this concept, this idea of a holding company, truth is, you just got to learn. And guess what? Your earning is always connected to your learning, because I don't want you to just have a good idea on paper that we call a business. I want you to establish a legal entity, structure it as a holding company, because this will be your legacy for you, for your family, and for the generations to come.